Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland preview podcast ahead of this weekend's juicy wee fixture with Coventry City. Neither side were able to win in midweek, with Sunderland rescued by a very late goal and a fantastic goal from Romain Munderleven. I'll get my words out eventually, as we stumbled to a 1-1 draw with Preston, whilst Coventry's impressive run was brought to a stutter and halt at Derby County. But I don't know really what to expect based on that. I'm going to come in this Saturday. So when we visit the Midlands, as always, or when the Midlands visit us, we always speak to Ross from Sky Blue Extra. Ross, I've stumbled through my intro there, but I'm going to leave it. Not going to change it just to show how much I care about this stupid podcast. How are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah, oh good mate. How about you?
I apparently can't get my words out. The move, which I think people know I've done in the past couple of days, has seemingly taken away my ability to speak, but hopefully hasn't taken away the ability to edit. Look, we'll start straight from the top. I touched on there before. I think you'd won 8 and 9 or something like that. Then you go to struggling Derby, and I was like, that'll be like 9 and 10. You got turned over. A shock result in some ways, if there's such a thing in the Championship. What went
Well,
wrong?
yeah, we did nine out. It was actually 9 out of 10, so we broke the
Was it?
record for us as a club. Yeah, we hadn't done that before. We did that Saturday by beating Stoke in the last minutes. Obviously, that was quite
Mm.
interesting to do that against Robins as well in the last minute. So, yeah, we were 9 in 10, mate. That only team we'd actually lost to was Leeds as well, which is not really an offence in this league. If I'm being totally honest, they're the best team I've watched twice. Don't know about you with Sunderland. I think they're a cut above the rest. If I'm being totally honest, Leeds. So we were missing players in that game and stuff. It was always going to be a bit of a whitewash with the form that they were on. So when you look at it, 9 from 10 and your only loss is Leeds, you go into a Derby team that, bar beating Blackburn, had been really struggling, to be fair. So we were hopeful, but as we touched upon before we came on, mate, this league is just banana skin central, isn't it? And this is the stage now when you get to 12, 11, 10 games left. The teams down the bottom that have struggled really start to show up. And fair play to Derby last night, mate. They didn't do much. They just sat in a low block, back five, big players. They got a goal from a set piece, which was poor from us. Went 1-0 up. We didn't really do much. We huffed and puffed. And then second half, they got a rubbish goal. I mean, the ball was about a mile out of play, by the way. We'll talk about the officials at this level, because how on earth the linesman doesn't see the ball go out of play from the position is staggering. I mean, I'm not going to take it away from Derby. They scored a good goal. They were much better than us, but that changes the game because it was 3 minutes into the second half, and it's just a bit like, come on, the penalty that we should have had Saturday, you've then got this one. It's like some of the decisions that don't go, keep going against you. You just think to yourself, goodness me, when does it end? But yeah, that's not to take anything away from them, mate. But we have been flying. As you just touched upon, we've been doing really well recently. We've not been great in every game, but we've just had that knack of how to win. But they do, like they say, all good things come to an end at some point. And unfortunately, while I was stood in Derby County at Pride Park last night at about 11 p.m, wondering to myself, why did I take a half day at work to come and watch this? Stood two yards away from Jack Radoni, who was in the away end for us last night, thinking, oh dear. But no, we move, like you said, results happen at this level, and it's just about your reaction, isn't it? Like, I'm sure you guys now losing 1-0 to Preston, then getting a late equaliser, although it's not a great result in the grand schemes, it feels a bit more of a perk for you, if that makes sense, coming back that late to find something rather than losing all three and actually picking up a point and then coming to obviously us on Saturday knowing that we've just lost as well. So
100%, mate. I think, look, we'll go back to the last time we spoke because it's kind of a good starting point, really. We chat on and off throughout the season for those unaware. And I was like, I'll ask him about Mark Robbins because there's been rumours. And I said, oh, what about Robbins going? And he went, nah, no chance. Like, that would be crazy. And I was like, yeah, yeah. And I came off the podcast thinking, oh, maybe it was a stupid question to ask. And like 2 hours later, after I edited it, Robbins was sacked, and straight away I was like, Ross is going to be in my DMs here. So straight away I was like, oh, Ross firing in my DMs yet again. And he was sacked, and I remember I said to you, I thought that's a mental decision, that's mad. And you went, yeah, I'm gobsmacked because look, I think everyone could see from the outside looking in the job that Robbins had done. We don't need to go too far into it. We know exactly what he did, even from the outside looking in, you especially. But going back to that day, look, we'll get on to what's happened since, and obviously you played against him on Saturday as a Stoke manager. But how did it feel when Roberts was given the boot? Because a lot of managers don't stay for the length of time he was there in the modern era.
I'll be honest, mate. Obviously, as you know, we touched upon it on the pod. We touched it again. Actually, we just lost a derby at home. Typical. Now I'm doing this with you, and we've just lost a derby again. Obviously, we just lost a derby, and I'd sort of done the preview pod with you, and I was saying you asked me the question, and no one could really see it. We were on a. I did say it wouldn't be like a. It wouldn't be surprising in terms of how bad we were doing because it was Robbins. You thought, nah, he'll probably get the season. He'll have sort of a bypass if that makes sense. If we do badly, even as long as we stay up, he'll get till next season. So no one really actually saw it coming. And then obviously the next day, my first day back at work, I'm back working, and I was in the car with my mate who I work with, and we were doing a few bits. And next thing you know, it's just I went, you're not going to believe this. He went, Robbins has been sacked. Morgan's just said some lad that we work with. I went, no, it's not. I went, it's got to be a what. Went on Twitter, well, X looked. Coventry City have parted way with Mark. Honestly, mate, for about an hour, it felt like I'd lost a family member. It was like you generally did not know what to say, and I think that was just from us, let alone people who don't even support or have any care for Coventry City in the world. I think even probably like Sunderland fans would have looked at that and gone, no, that can't be true. They've not got rid of him. It was a jaw-dropping moment because it wasn't just the fact of sacking Robbins. It was more about, well, what's next? Where do we go from here? What's the club now going to do? We've spent this money. We've got a squad of players. Robbins has been here 7.5 years, built everything. What is the next step? So that first initial reaction was just, it was the unknown that we hadn't been in for going on 8 years. We've always known who was the manager, what we were doing, how we played, and going from that to now thinking, well, who's going to come in and now run our football club and take us forward was a big sort of shock for everyone. And it was, I'll be honest, it caused a lot of controversy at the time it was done. There was a lot of angry people with the owner, Doug King, at the time. They just felt it was a very unfair dismissal. People obviously have a lot of sort of love for Robbins and what he did, and they were obviously devastated in general. But yeah, it caused a bit of divide to start with, if I'm being totally honest with the fan base. It was such a bold move from him to do it at the time he did, and it took a lot of bottle from an owner, which I think is a good thing in a way, because as we'll go into, it's kind of paid off in a sense. But yeah, it was a shocking day, mate. Like when I actually look back at it now, everyone was just gobsmacked, like the amount of WhatsApps, messages you were getting off people. Can't believe this, you know what I mean? Like there was literally people who other Cov podcasts, sorry, who were doing like what are they called, spaces on X in the middle of the day while they're working, because it was that gobsmacking. People just had to talk about it, like they just didn't know what to do or what to say. So yeah, it was a shocking moment, mate. But obviously, as we'll get into, things have sort of moved on since then, and obviously he's now moved on as well. He's in a completely different job, and that was sort of the past, if that makes sense. But yeah, looking back, it was really weird at the time. It was a weird feeling. I can't really explain it to anyone, if that makes sense. It was just the shock of not knowing what the future was going to hold was the most like sort of worrying thing to me, if that makes sense, because we've always had that helm there. No matter how bad things were, we'd always rely on him to turn it around, sort of thing. So yeah, it was a shocking moment, mate.
Weird. I feel a bit sorry for Mark Robbins. Obviously made unemployed in November, and then even worse, he's got to live in Stoke. So bad news all around for him.
Well,
But
you want to know a funny story about that? You know why he probably took that job, mate? Because he don't live far from Stoke. He actually lives in Derby. He's a man of many houses. He's quite a property investor, and his away football management career is Robbins. So he actually doesn't live too far. So I think that's another factor as to why he actually took that job, because it's quite local to him, if that makes sense, and where he lives. But yeah, like you said, he has the unfortunate side of turning up to the Bet365 stadium full of that lot every week. God bless him.
once went to a Weatherspoons in Stoke, and it might potentially have been the worst, most shocking moment of my life. I was only there for 10 minutes. But anyway, Frank Lampard. Yes, moving on away from my weird weekends, as Louis Theroux might say. But look, you told me when Lampard came in, you said, I'm excited about this. And I, like, privately, and I went, and I kind of scoffed at you. I was like,
Yeah,
no,
you
come
did.
on now. I was like,
I
shut up.
remember.
I
You
did. I
went,
was like, don't be daft.
you went, nah, rubbish decision. Rubbish.
I was like, what's he done? This is mad. Um, well, he's done quite well since. And obviously, I don't know much about football, but I don't think that's a shock. Me not knowing anything about football, not so much Frank Lampard doing well. But you were excited, but I know the reputation that Lampard comes with because of his, should we say, underwhelming spell at Everton. Although he did keep them up and he did have good moments. He had a good spell at Derby. Didn't do very well at Chelsea both times. So I know he's got this kind of reputation, which might be fair, might be unfair. I don't know. But when he first came in, did most fans feel quite positive about it, or was it quite a mix?
I'll be honest, a lot of people were sort of, oh, we'll see what he's going to do. You know, it was more of a case of a lot of, like I said, the emotion of Robbins. It could have been Sir Alex Ferguson come back in from retirement. People would have still found something to moan about. Oh, he's got too many grey hairs now, so he ain't going to be the same as Robbins. You know, it would have been something along the lines. He was fighting a losing battle. He had to do the talking on the pitch, really, and what he was doing. But I'll be honest, mate, what excited me about it is you look at Lampard, and obviously, first of all, it's the name and the bloke that he is and the publicity he'll bring to the club. And I did actually watch him, and I know he gets a lot of criticism, but he obviously did well with Derby before. He has had a good stint at Chelsea when they got to fourth place with that team. Yeah, not everything's been rosy, but what excited me the most about it, this almost felt like last chance saloon for him, and it was such an important job, and he's actually come out and said, Coventry didn't approach me. I approached them and said, no, this is the job that I want. Obviously, he had a lot of offers from other clubs that spoke to him and stuff like that. But he said, no, I feel this is the right fit for me to go forward now with my managerial career and what I want to do. So the fact, obviously, he did that shows a lot about what he thought of the squad and the club and where it's going. But what I mentioned it to you privately that I liked about it the most as well was the people that he brought into the club with him. You know, Joe Edwards, Chris Jones, like these are good coaches. Like Joe Edwards, you know, I think, mate, Joe Edwards a year ago just got sacked by Millwall pretty much. He was the manager. Now he's our assistant head coach, if that makes sense, along with Chris Jones, who's also been in the England first team before coaching. So these aren't people. I think Joe Edwards was also in Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea team that won the Champions League. He was part of that background. So these people are no mugs in the game. They're good coaching staff. So that was more, I'll be honest, what excited me is what he was bringing with him, not just him, if that makes sense. And it felt like different this time. The amount of noise that came from, oh, you've got Lampard and everyone wrote him off. It felt like he had to do something. If he didn't, then it would be, oh, he can never manage in England again now. Look, he's took Coventry, he's made them worse, blah, blah, blah. So it felt like he had a massive point to prove. And obviously, when he first started, you could see he needed to get his teeth into things, and it took him a while. And obviously, we had a few bad results and whatnot. And then we started to have a good little bit of form over Christmas, and then we lost to Norwich. And then all of a sudden, we just started to just pick up loads of wins, mate, and momentum started to come. Players started coming back from injury. Signed Matt Grimes, bought Jamie Patterson in on a free, who's a local Cov lad, played at this level, good player. Bought him in as well. So two sort of shrewd signings that people weren't expecting, and people just started to like thought, actually, he's the gaffer now. Got to get behind him, and people have really bought into him. And what he knows that Robbins had, that I've been really impressed with him, is the connection with the fans, if that makes sense. And a lot of people have seen it online, and he always does the yeah and that kind of stuff. But he's not doing that to attention seek. He's doing that because Milan Van Evac does that for us anyway. It was a thing when Robbins was here, but he's doing that just because he's a very different personality to Robbins. Robbins is a very subdued, leaves it to his coaches. He just wants to manage to do certain things, pick the way that the team play and things like that. Whereas Lampard is he's a coach. He wants to coach the players, if that makes sense. He's there on the grass, in his boots, doing stuff with them, practicing shooting, talking to players, wanting to improve them as individuals as well as a team, if that makes sense. And I think that's the big thing that people have really bought into him. And he is massive with the fans. Like, he's very, you can see that he's got a lot of passion for what we're doing, and he loves the fans, and he's really bought into how we are as a fan base, and he understands how important we will be going forwards for him if he wants to achieve success and get somewhere in this job, if that makes sense. So I think that's been kind of the most sort of impressive thing with him really at the moment since coming in. He's really bought into how we are as a fan base, and instead of it just going down and him going, well, I'm doing it completely different. He's almost gone, seen what Robbins has done here. I'm going to do things a little bit differently, but I'm going to still have a lot of the same methodology behind what I'm doing. So that connection with the fans is really important. The going doing the players doing like the talks and stuff with the fans at supporters clubs didn't stop them in encouraging those things, doing a lot of stuff in the community, all that kind of stuff that we've had. It's not like he's come in and gone, oh, no, scrap that now. We're not doing that. It's the Lampard way. He's just gone, actually, this is my stamp on things, but we're going to keep a lot of the stuff the same. We're just going to tweak little bits that I do in a different manner. And that's kind of been what's, I'd say, the most impressive with him, if that makes sense so far. And obviously, we're not doing too shabby table wise because we're currently, what, if West Brom would have lost last night, would have still only been a place behind you, but we're sat 2 places behind you. And I remember at one point looking up at you near third, and we were in about 18th, 19th place. And it was thinking, God, this is going to be a bleak season for us. And now we could potentially get in the playoffs. So you got to hats off and credit where credit's due, mate. I think with this one, so yeah, it's a very positive thing, and a lot of Cov fans have definitely bought into what he's trying to do with us now, if that makes sense, and are fully behind Lampard. And just quickly before I obviously finish, I think it was nice Saturday that we played Robbins because it kind of put that era to bed, if that makes sense now. Like, we'd won the game, and obviously, as you can imagine, he wasn't happy and he clapped the Stoke fans. But obviously, not many people will know this, but we obviously used to have a song, There's Only One Mark Robbins, walking along, singing a song in a Robbins wonder. All the crowd started singing that at the end of the game after we'd won and done all the stuff we'd done. And he actually, before he went down the tunnel, come out and sort of like clapped all of the fans. And that was almost like the closure moment, if that makes sense, for Coventry City and Mark Robbins. It was that's your one last song. We'll never forget and appreciate everything you've done for us as a football club, but we're in a new era now with Frank Lampard, just like you're in a new era with your Stoke team, and we wish you all the best, unless we obviously play against you. So that was kind of nice as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what Lampard does moving forwards, but we're looking in a good place at the minute, mate, I think. So it's going to be an interesting last 10 to 11 games for us as a football club, and see where we end up.
Based on like what you were saying before about how the Robbins era sort of came to an end, and you was like it was hard to process because he's been there that long, and look, the only kind of comparison I would have would be Peter Reid. And I was a very different age. I wasn't an adult. I was a very young man, shall we say, if that. And we appointed Howard Wilkinson, and that was fucking dreadful. So I can't really compare to a good run after losing this long-term manager. But now that you've had like the months, what we in March, so you've had 4 months to get used to kind of this team under Lampard. You've performed well. You've been able to let the dust settle on Mark Robbins no longer being part of Coventry City Football Club. Now, I think at the time, as you said, a lot of people were shocked by it, both within and outside of the Coventry fan base. But now that the dust has settled, was it actually the right time for the two to like part? Like in hindsight, was it the right time?
If you, do you want me to be brutally honest, I think it now looking back at it, it probably should have been done sooner. I
Mm.
really do think it should. I think if we as a fan base have said, if you actually look at it now, if we would have done that instead of the start of, well, mid-October, for example, if we'd have done that end of September time, we could have had a lot more points on the board than actually what we do, because we're currently sat on 56. We could have gained an extra 6 to 8 points in that period of time that we could have on the board now, and we wouldn't be too far behind you in fourth place, and we'd look at it and think, do you know, it could have been different. So I think it actually, in a non-horrible way, it could have actually been done sooner, and I think it probably would have benefited us more if we're being totally honest. At the time, it was never a good time when it first happened, but when the dust settles and you look back at it, I think it probably could have and should have been done actually sooner. I think Doug King actually gave him longer than he probably wanted to. It was just because he knew it was such a big decision. If it would have been done end of September, start of October, and we bought Lampard in, I think we could have had at least another 6 to 8 more points than we currently are on now, and that would take us into the 60s. Do you know what I mean? So it actually, now the dust has settled, I think it probably could have and should have been done sooner than it was, if I'm being totally honest. And we could have been in a different position. But hindsight's a good thing, isn't it? Really, you can look at the if buts and maybes, but we did it when we did it, and we are where we are. We've just got to take the form that we've been on and put it into the last part of the season and see where we end up. I think if we don't make the playoffs, no one would be gutted, if that makes sense, because we only really started to play just after Christmas. Before Christmas, we were absolutely abysmal. We were losing most weeks, playing rubbish, didn't look like a team, disjointed, fans getting annoyed. It wasn't looking good. So to go from that in the space of 3 months to putting yourself in a playoff position isn't bad doing. So even if we miss out, as an example, no one will be annoyed this year because we have had a good little patch, and then it'll be right. We need to start next season properly. We need to actually, because we never start well, as a lot of people will point out, and know we always are slow starters. It seems to be a thing that we have, but we need to get out of that habit where we start better or in a good steady way, which will help us then come the end of the season. But yeah, I think it actually could have been, I think it could have and probably should have been done earlier, mate, to answer your question, looking back at it now. Which is crazy to think. When I first spoke to you, I would have never have dreamt of saying those words. But now, when you look at it after all these months going on, it's football's a mad game, as they say, and it really is. It just changes, click of your fingers, and you look now and you think, November, when I got back from Dubai and I come back, if you'd have told me that in March we'd sit and do this preview before the home game, that this is the stuff we'd be talking about, I'd have said, you've lost it, mate. You've lost a lot. You've absolutely lost it, and now it's actually a reality. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But yeah, I think it could have and probably should have been done sooner, if we're being totally honest.
You touched on the last time we spoke there. Now I looked at where we were in the league and kind of got a bit sad because look, that game pissed me off to high heaven because I just you couldn't score two better goals and then you play Coventry and there was just a feeling where at half time was that we're going to duff this up somehow. I don't know how, but we are. But I looked at the league table and we were top as it was at the time. Obviously on a good run as it was, playing really well at home. You were 17th. It sounds worse than it is because there's only a couple of points between that and I think like 13th or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. By the time we face each other this weekend, we're only going to be two places apart. Now, look, we've got a 13-point lead on you. I know that's pretty handy, and I know the top four is kind of pulled away from everyone else because of various reasons. But when it comes to playoffs, it doesn't really matter whether we're 13 or 30 points ahead of you. Playoffs is the playoffs. Um, and that's, I think, if I'm completely honest with you, why I would like to avoid Coventry. But how I really, really, really want to avoid Coventry at every point, to be honest. But even this weekend, like, just
Get
want
it
to
out of the
avoid it
way.
again.
Can we just
Yeah,
play it and get it done?
just end it and please don't play each other anymore. But looking at Coventry's fan base, you talk about. I remember when we got in the playoffs in League One, and we'd been around there a while, to be fair, but we hit a real good run of form like from about March under Alex Neil, and there was just a feeling going in the playoffs like, fucking hell, we're doing all right here. Like we weren't perfect every game. We didn't win every game, but we were winning games at the last minute. We were getting wins where we needed them. And by the time we hit the playoffs against Chef Wed, which was the hardest game probably in the playoffs that you could have got at the time,
Yeah.
I felt dead confident. And I said, and I'm often pessimistic because look, how many teams win more games than they lose? Not many. So you're normally disappointed with a football team. Um, but I said to my fiance at the time, I said, "We'll win these, win this," and she was like, oh, "Win at Wembley." And I said, "Yeah, we'll win this." And I turned out to be right, but it was based on the momentum and the confidence I felt from the run leading into the playoffs. Now, look, I know you lost last night, and I know you've got us on Saturday, which is a tough game. Then you've got Sheffield United, and then you've got Burnley, which is quite a good little precursor to see if you can stay in those playoffs. But how confident does the fan base feel at the moment? Because I know, and I remember exactly what it feels like to have a good run of form where you seem to just be getting wins, even when you're not playing well, leading into the end of the season, and you're around those playoff spots. You just get such an injection of confidence from it.
Yeah, It's a strange one, mate, because obviously when we got in the playoffs 2 seasons ago, obviously, and then lost to Luton, it was really weird because obviously we weren't we had a good bit of form then, not as good as what we've been on now, but there was high spirits, and towards the end, like you said, we had a good bit of form. Then we drew at Middlesbrough on the last day. We're flying that season. Like they could have easily got top two if they didn't actually mess up. And going into the playoffs, it was quite ironic. They actually really thought they were gonna, hammer us just off the basis that we'd snuck in on fifth and they were third, and they really could have gone up in the top two that year with, I think it was Sheffield United, and who was the other team that went up with them
It
that
was
won
it
the league?
was Sheffield
Uh,
United and oh God, I can't remember. But Sheffield United were the one they were like toying
Burnley.
with. Burnley, yes,
Burnley,
it was.
Burnley, yeah, under Vincent Company, yeah, that was
That's
the one.
right.
And I remember we played them in the playoffs, and obviously they drew 0-0 at our place in the first place, and a lot of the Middlesbrough fans were walking, and they went buzzing, tie over now. They said that's all we needed was a 0-0 draw. They went, we're going to absolutely smash you at our place. And me and my mates and everyone that was there, and loads of people went, I can't wait to turn them over, because I was going to it as well on the semi-final, and we had a feeling going up. Don't get me wrong, before kick-off, you do start to get a bit jittery and it actually hits, but you just had this feeling, I think we're going to do these. And we just sat back, played confident. We actually played well. We nullified them and we got that one goal, and we did them. And like you said, that just come off pure momentum of how we were feeling. They'd been much better than us over the course of the whole season, really. But we just had confidence in what we were going to do. They were too overconfident, thinking, oh, well, we finished third, they finished fifth, and only really just got in after a couple of last games. And we ended up winning. And then realistically, we could have won the final, obviously, against Luton, who were another team that were doing well at the time as well. So, like you said, it is massively important in the playoffs. It's not about where you finish, it's about the form you have going in. And if you're full of confidence, over 2 legs, mate, anything is possible. I think just from a Cov fan perspective, we'd probably fancy ourselves against anyone. Yourselves, West Brom, Sheffield United, even if they got. And the only team we don't want to play is Burnley, because all the Cov fans say they've conceded what, 9 goals, 10 goals now all season. Like, it's just a snooze fest against them, innit? And you just know
Mm.
if you play them, if they get a 0-0 draw at your place, you're probably going to lose, because they'll probably keep a clean sheet at home and beat you 2-0. And then you go out in a playoff losing 2-0 and not even scoring a goal. So if anything, we said we'd love them to go up automatically so that we can just avoid them. And then it's just a lottery ticket between Sheffield United, you guys, us potentially, and then West Brom or whoever else ends up in the playoffs. So it is all about form. And if we did play Burnley, I still would think we'd give them a good go and fancy. I just think out of everyone, they're the team that we look at and think, God, we do not want to play them over 2 legs. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't be a nice watch for us. But like you said, it's massively important now how we react to this loss on Tuesday. So obviously starting with you guys, but not even just you guys. Like you mentioned, we've got Sheffield United and Burnley straight after the break, which are two really hard games. You've then got to play the likes of Portsmouth in midweek. We've still got to go away down to Plymouth. We've still got to play. Who else? Got Hull away
Oh,
as well. Got West Brom at home. There's some tour. Got Luton away. Who'll be fighting till the last death. We've then got Middlesbrough at home, last game of the season, who, let's be honest, will probably be in and around it somehow. So it doesn't get easier. We're either playing three top teams at the top of the league, but then once you get them out of the way, it's teams that have all got something to play for and are actually winning games at the moment, picking up points. So it does, although people go, oh, Coventry have got an easy running, it's not going to be an easy running. But like you said, when you have the momentum, you have to make the most of that and then get yourself in and just keep winning. And we're not going to go on another 9 out of 10 games. There's absolutely no chance we're going to do that. But if we can still keep looking at, say, 3 games in a row and going win two, draw or lose one, win two, draw or lose one, win two, draw or lose one, you keep that form up till the end of the season, you've got a very good chance of getting yourself in the playoffs. And that's what we've got to now look at, is just looking games in threes, hopefully starting off touchwood with a win against you on Saturday. And then if we can somehow get something at Sheffield United, which isn't impossible. Bristol City sneaked it again last night, got a point there. Hull beat them earlier in the season, they got a good win at them there, so they're not unbeatable, Sheffield United. If they don't turn up or have a bad game and we turn up and have a good game, it's a Friday night game now under the lights. It's been moved 8 o'clock. you never know what you could go and do there. And it's the most cov thing ever to lose to all the easy teams and beat all the teams that we shouldn't beat. It is the most cov thing ever. So it's just such an interesting running that we've got coming up. But as you mentioned, momentum is massive, I think, going into the playoffs. It doesn't matter whether you finish third, fourth, fifth, or sixth. The playoffs are a lottery, especially in the championship. Whoever has got the best form and most confidence has a good chance of going on to win the whole thing. So if we can keep the form that we're on, as you've mentioned, we'd have that feel good factor going in. Place to be packed out. We'd obviously sell out the away crowd wherever we go. The CBS would be full for the home leg, and when we're at home, we've only lost one game, touch wood, at the minute under Lampard at home since he came in, and that was to Leeds in the league. Whereas under Robbins, we were pretty much losing most games at home earlier on. So we've really turned our home ground into a fortress, we being the only team that we've lost to at home since obviously he's come in, Lampard, is Leeds, which is for us no shame considering they probably are the best team in the league, as I mentioned earlier on. So yeah, momentum is massive in this division, mate. And I think, like you said, if we could keep a good reign of form going on and get ourselves in there, I would fancy us to give it a good go, if I'm being totally honest. So it's going to be an interesting interesting end to the season and see if we can actually manage to stay in there and solidify ourselves a place and get there.
Unbeknown to everyone listening, because we don't do this on video podcast, I'm in this new house, and I genuinely thought someone was behind me there, so I missed like a little bit of your conversation because I was busy shitting myself. And I don't, I kind of turned round and got a shock thinking something was there and did a fart, and now I can't concentrate on my next question. So yeah, as always, professionalism on this podcast that can't do intros and now it announces when it passes wind. But anyway, moving on. Football, no one cares. Right, let's see. Right, so look, I kind of don't want to go back to our game in November. It pees me off when I watch the highlights, which I have done because the goals that we scored were absolutely class and two of the
That
best we've
is
ever
Isidore's
seen.
goal.
Oh, mate, like Serkin's got the big kind of headline, but like Isidore's like, oh.
Yeah, that was a wicked goal. That was. I remember seeing that. You scored two unbelievable goals in that game, but
But
like you said, it.
the second half drove me batty to the point where I can't watch them back because I just know what comes. But look, I have to bring it up because I asked you earlier in the season who would be the player you would take from Sunderland's team to put into your team, but I've changed it now that we've played everyone. Going back to that game, who was the player that impressed you most from Sunderland's team and why?
Again, I probably would say Isidore because he was just a player that, for so young, you wouldn't expect someone like him to just, even the simple things, it's like running the channels and stuff and like holding the ball. Like everyone's seen it at this level, and teams always do it. They sign a player that's really good technically, they have good potential, but they just struggle to do basic things that you're expected to do in this league, like hold the ball up, spin in behind, run the channels, do all of those sorts of things. But he seemed to grasp that, if that makes sense. He knows that he has to do that to be a good player at this level, and that kind of surprised me. And obviously he scored an unbelievable goal against us as well, and he looked really, really sharp. And we did say he'll be a good player for them this year, and he'll probably get a good few goals, and they'll be looking to keep him permanently, which I know obviously since then you've then since done, and he's your player now permanently, which I think will help him kick on. And he is still a young lad and he's still learning, so it'll be good for him to, even if you don't go up or whatever this year, next year he'll be a real handful of a player because he'll have had a year's experience. So I would say him, to be honest, was the one that impressed me the most because I didn't really know too much about him. And then obviously I have seen him since. I won't bring up the Burnley game to you because I'm sure that will pain you just like it did my Sunderland friend when he missed two penalties in a row. But yeah, I've watched him a few times and I've been very, very impressed with him as a player since, as well as when we played against him. So I would say Isidore, but obviously, as you probably know from me speaking to you before, I think the best player that you guys have obviously got is Enzo Lafite, but obviously, unfortunately, he's injured and won't play on Saturday. But yeah, Isidore most definitely, mate.
Definitely lost it when you said Enzo Lafite. Yeah, like I've totally lost it with this house move because you said unfortunately, and I thought you were going to say he's dead, and I was like, he's not dead. Like he's just his hamstring, mate. He's not dead. To the listeners that get this in joke, not like Leo Yelder, who has since been resurrected. Now, we haven't won at Coventry since before I was born. I'm 39 this year, 13th of April 1985. I think, look, there's no love lost between Sunderland and Coventry, and I understand why. I'm purposely going to delay this podcast by 15 minutes on the release just to kind of commemorate Coventry being absolute bastards in 77 and 97. But look, as always, ask you for a prediction, and I think most Sunderland fans would go feeling a bit underconfident because of our record against Coventry home and away. Coventry always seem to do something against us, as the game earlier in the season. You can score two worldy goals, absolutely dominate, and still we can't seem to beat you. But I'm going to go positive this week, right? Now, I'm not going to go positive because I just want to. Law of averages says we're bound to get one win at Coventry at some point. We might lose the next 10 at Coventry. We've lost the previous however many. I'm going to take us to win 3-1. And I'm shocking myself with that, but I'm just basing it on law of averages that there's got to be a point in our footballing history where we go to Coventry and just beat you. And it would make me more nervous if we then got you in the playoffs because I think, shit, we've
We
had
beat
our
them.
one. Yeah, we've had our one. So this is for Coventry fans listening, all, four of you or none of you or half of you, whatever it may be. I think I'm not saying we're going to go and batter Coventry. I'm just saying it's law of averages. And in some sort of weird way, if we then got you in the playoffs, I'd feel bad about battering you because we're only going to get one, aren't we? That's just the way it goes. But are you as confident on the opposite side?
Yeah, I think what makes me confident is our players know that they have to put a reaction in, if that makes sense, and they'll know that this is a big game, just like the Sunderland
Yeah.
players. Yeah, it's not technically a rivalry, but it is a feisty game. There's no love lost between both sets of supporters. Let's be brutally honest. I obviously speak to yourself and others, but most Sunderland fans aren't massive fans of Coventry as a club. A lot of them actually
I like
probably.
you. I just don't like Coventry.
Yeah, a lot of them. I wouldn't even say dislike. I'd say a lot. I'd say most Sunderland fans despise Coventry. Would be safe to say. Is this despise is actually me being nice as well. I think it's safe to say Sunderland have done themselves no prisoners with our fan base in terms of the despise being reciprocated back
Yeah.
over the years, which I think they fully are fully aware of. But yeah, it's a spicy encounter, so it's not just going to be both teams just play it around. There's not, it's going to be 50-50s, duels, real end to end. I think it's going to be quite an entertaining game of football because you're not going to come to us and try and low block us and do some rubbish game. You're going to come and go, let's play. We've got good players. We know you have, and we like to play with the ball and keep the ball now. So I actually think it's going to be quite a. And even if you don't support either team, or even just for us watching, I think it'll be a really good game of football, and it'll be quite nice because you think actually, if this was a playoff game, it would be quite a good game to watch at this level, if that makes sense, further down the line. But I'm going to go with a scrappy 2-1 win, just like we did a couple of seasons ago when Gyökeres and Jamie Allen scored that season. Then you got the late one back with Diallo. But I don't think it will be a 2-0. I actually think you'll go 1-0 up and we'll come back to win and get a scrappy 2-1. I can see you guys scoring the first goal purely off the basis of we start games very, very slowly. So I will throw that out there. If your players do or are listening, if you start the game quickly, you could potentially put yourself about 2 or 3-0 up in the first 20 minutes because we have a habit of really starting slow in games and then growing into it. Even Stoke at the weekend, we got 2 first half goals, but they could have been 2 or 3-0 up in the first 15 minutes. We were absolutely horrific. So it all depends if we turn up or not, or how we turn up. You could completely blitz us in the first half an hour if we don't turn up, but we normally grow into the game. But I just feel like because of how bad we were last night, they owe us a performance, and they know it's the last one before the break. The players know they're getting a break after this, so they can really let off some win. I think it'll be quite a good game Saturday, but I think we'll come out on top 2-1.
Ross, always good to catch up, but I hope you have a horrendous weekend. Um,
Ditto, mate. Ditto.
and hopefully I don't see you next year. We get promoted and you don't. And we'll chat in another medium in a different way, not over football. But no, seriously, mate. Always good to catch up. Look after
Yeah,
yourself.
and you, mate.
Thanks.
All the best for the rest of the season. Obviously, apart from Saturday, where I hope you have a miserable return to the Midlands. But you could potentially go and do some sightseeing. You got the Coventry Cathedral if you fancy it afterwards. To amuse yourself.
There's a statue I can go and fucking shout at if I want.
Yeah, or you could do that like before. There's a statue right outside that you could go and have a little bit of fun with. If you want to go and stand and have a little bit of abuse at Jimmy Hill, you're more than welcome to.